I'm delighted to say that we've got Niall O'Toole with us to talk to us about the rowing. Niall, how are you getting on?
Hey, Ger. Yeah, fabulous. I'm pumped after that weekend. What a weekend, huh? Incredible. You see my backdrop here? Rocking out the girls here in my backdrop.
Very
Yeah,
good.
no, awesome weekend.
Very good. You're obviously doing a bit of rowing yourself. You're looking well.
Yeah, just, you can't fatten a thoroughbred, Ger,
There you
Have
go.
you seen a fat greyhound? There you go, yeah, just it's natural.
Have you been inspired to get back?
I know, I have been doing a bit. I do a bit. I keep going, that kind of way. I'm inspired by John, John Duggan. He's been smashing me, that kind of way. He's definitely in the fitness boat, so that's I'm joining John in that sphere.
One thing that I'm always interested in is there a direct correlation between kids getting in the boat and watching stuff at the weekend, or even like middle-aged people getting in a boat and seeing, I love rowing. Like, are we as a country wakening up to our potential as a hotbed of rowing globally?
Yeah, there's definitely more activity on the water, definitely more people joining it at schools level, and also even kind of veterans coming back to the sport and people joining the sport for the first time as well. No matter what age, it's a sport for all. No impact. It's the skill you can pick up relatively. It takes a little bit of time, but you can get the feeling of that boat moving relatively quickly. So yeah, it's a sport for all, definitely. We have capacity issues within the clubs and some infrastructural problems really in the clubs to deal with the amount of people that are coming into the sport. But yes, it's one for the future. And we've always, I said this year before, Joe, it's sport, rowing, it's a perfect sport for us in lots of ways. It's amateur. It's based on volunteerism, which Ireland is extremely good at. So yeah, and it's a really tough sport, which we're pretty hard as a nation. So yeah,
I remember talking to somebody about this before. Like, our genetic predisposition is we're not massively long like the Nordics or the Central Europeans. We're kind of just about the right size to sit in a boat and row, pull like a dog, essentially.
Absolutely, and we are tough. The kind of, I've raced throughout Europe. I've been in lots of different training camps throughout Europe, and when I went into the Italian system or the Norwegian system, I realised that, listen, I'm as tough as any of these guys, and I was the same as everybody else at home. So yeah, we are tough fighters, tough racers, tough trainers. So it's really ideal for us as a nation. Yeah.
We'll talk about the men in a minute, but it's the women that we should start with who are behind you there. So
I see the girls. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about
jumping up. Yeah,
so the silver this weekend, but it wasn't just the silver, it was a bunch of forts as well. So like, there's a crop coming through at the same time, again pushing each other and on the verge of equaling the success of the men.
Most definitely. I mean, there's definitely been a massive upturn in girls rowing and women's rowing, since the medal of Tokyo. It's always that breakthrough medal, Ger, that and similar to the guys, similar to Paul's medal back in Rio. There's always been that breakthrough medal, that one kind of stake in the ground, and there's been a massive influx of girls who were good club rowers or had made a national team before, who have really kicked on. And I think just the head coach doesn't put out bad crews. He was willing to put out an 8 at this European Championships. Now, it didn't race because unfortunately Sunita got ill. But it just shows the level of depth that Ireland would have. Like, we've never put out an 8 in women's rowing before. So it just shows the level of depth. These girls are pushing each other hard. And there's a whole range of under 23s coming through. So at the under 23s, we got, I think it was 4 medals at the under 23s. I think it's a couple of silvers, a couple of bronzes. So there's a huge flow of new talent coming through that pipeline. So it's looking very healthy. The girls, did an incredible job the weekend. So, and again, you're right, Joe, we got 3 fourths by really small margins. It was incredibly unlucky. I think we were 7th or 8th on the medal table. One of those medals converted, and we would have been, 3rd or 4th in the medal table at the European. So it's a really healthy situation. And just being around the girls this weekend, there's a really good, strong energy. There's a real toughness about that group. There's a real solidarity about that group. Given that said, they're all going into training camp now. They're all hopping on a bus on the training camp this week, preparation for the World Championships in 6 weeks' time in Rudnici in Prague. And they will be knocking lumps out of each other in the next couple of weeks, because that boat is not settled. The four, the pair, the double, those boats are not settled, and they will be settled in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the World Championships. So even there's a really good camaraderie in the team, but they're also knocking lumps out of each other, and they will continue to do that. So when you're racing at the for a European medal, not only racing for a European medal, you're racing to stake your claim on your seat in that boat. And that competitiveness, Antonio likes to keep them kind of on edge, and that will continue right away for the next 2 weeks. So you think they're kind of having an easy kind of build into the World Championships. They go back into camp, and it's going to be a difficult 2 weeks while they sort out which is really the final solid cruise for the World Championships in 6 weeks.
Because that was definitely the noticeable thing about seeing the names in the boats this time, that half of the team had their Olympic medals from last year and half didn't. So there's obviously been a bit of chopping and changing. Can you talk us through a little bit about how those decisions are actually made behind the scenes, and what those weeks where things get particularly intense actually look like?
Well, what they'll do is they'll break them into pairs again. So they'll break them the four into pairs. So those 6 athletes will be in pairs, and they will do some pairs matrix. So they'll find out the quickest pair, and then they'll put them into the 4. So they'll take the top 2, for instance, the top 2 pairs in those pairs matrix, and then they'll put them into the 4. They'll race them against a controlled boat, like a double, or if they feel the conditions are still enough that they can get a good baseline on the races. So sometimes you have to have a control boat just in case the wind picks up or drops, and they'll race that 4 against the control boat and find out which is the best 4. They'll chop and change the calibration, but chop and change those seats, but they'll do it based on the pair, who's moving the pair the quickest. And then they'll pop them in and do another round of combinations in the 4. And so there's a huge kind of matrix around getting the best crew. There's also a little bit of feel, and the coach will have to use that little bit of feel, like who's performed the best in training, who's the most consistent performer, who's a bit maybe creaking a little bit in terms of injury and things like that. But this boat is not settled. These girls will be knocking lumps out of each other for the next 2 years to make sure that they're in the boat that's going to get the Olympic medal in 2024. The whole hope is here, guys, that the pair, that we have a 4 and a pair in the Olympics that gets 2 medals. That's the goal. But it looks like it is now at the moment. The 4 is the main boat, with the pair kind of being the secondary boat. But hopefully, when we all get settled, that pair, or the pair who is picked, will improve and have time to do so. So hopefully that answers.
Is there ever like just a straight race, like where 3 of the seats on the boat are settled, and then they have like one race to see who goes fastest, or is it?
They can. You may have a particularly kind of one seat. You may have 2 people that are so close, almost inseparable in terms of all the matrix. So you'll step in, so they'll switch out that person, and they'll do some pairs matrix either against the 4 or just on a timed piece. You have to remember, guys, if the wind picks up and dies, that can affect the results. So sometimes they have a control boat to make sure that it is fair. But again, it's there's only 4 seats. Somebody's going to miss out. And the person on the bank is it's always winning a hair's breadth of the people on the water. That's the nature of the beast. And somebody is going to miss out, but that's the nature of the beast. We can't race with 5 in the boat, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I guess that level of competition drives them on. Let's talk a little bit about the men's. Okay, so I think you probably heard the conversation there about.
What's the story like? Have we not made a decision that Paul O'Donovan is the greatest Irish sportsman of all time? Is that not done? Why are we having this conversation, Ger?
Go for it there. Make the case.
An Olympic silver, what is he, 20, 27, 28? An Olympic silver, an Olympic gold, 4 world championships, 3 European titles and just a rake of other things. So, you know, to add to that, World Cups, most World Cups, like just I just don't know why we're. Okay, if Paul wins, how many World Championships and many Olympic goals does Paul O'Donovan need to win to be the greatest sports person of all time in Ireland? Is there a number? Can we pick a number? Because he's going to do it. So, yeah, he is the greatest. In my opinion, what he does is it just surpasses anything else. Now, I might be biased. Okay, I'll give you that. I might be a little bit biased, but it is a world sport. It is a sport that is Ireland is, and don't forget what he's done within the sport, but how he's kind of led that team as well. So his influence is not just within what he's doing; it's also within the broader sport itself. He's given us all, a very, very high bar, and you can teach it to girls. Everybody's reaching it. So yeah, can we? The question is to you, Ger. What is the number?
I don't know. I think that it becomes increasingly clear in people's minds that he's not alone in the conversation, but like right there with anything that any of us, any of our great sports people have achieved. I do think that like, I hate these conversations in the aftermath of something like this because it feels like you're nitpicking. But like, you know, Roy Keane was the best player at Man United during their best period and that's. Obviously, football is a global sport with huge participation, but he's at the same level as Roy Keane, right? I think that's like we can all agree they'd be great company, they'd be good crack, and I think they would kill each other.
They would kill each other. I'd like to be a fly in the wall or in that padded room. Either way, if you got those two guys together, it would be good to see.
Yeah, the killing each other thing is interesting. Like, I mean, to become one of the greatest sports people your country has ever produced, there obviously has to be that killer, that ruthlessness that has to be part of your character. How does that manifest itself for Paul O'Donovan? Because obviously what we see in front of the microphone is like the very happy-go-lucky version of Paul O'Donovan. Yeah,
it's we were just having pints after the race on Saturday. I was having pints. Paul wasn't, and I like, is he going to the World Championships or not? You know, that kind of way. The perception is that Paul doesn't care. Paul cares. He deeply cares. The perception is that, you know, he doesn't care about his legacy. He doesn't care about the numbers. He doesn't care about. Paul deeply cares. When you're an elite athlete and performing at the level of it, you have to create a persona. He's created a persona, and that persona is flippant. I don't care, and that relieves a lot of the pressure, I think, within that extreme kind of pressurized situation that he puts himself under. So, yeah, it's a persona, but he deeply cares, and it's all from my point of view. It's all just smoke and mirrors. He's a highly intelligent person, knows exactly what he's going to say all the time. It's all a bit of a kind of, if you like, I hate to use the word front because that's not what it is. You understand? It's how he copes really with that pressure, and it relieves that pressure on him. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, he has created this persona, and it helps him. And like with all elite athletes, they have to put on that cloak every day, and it helps them through their day and helps them through competition. And that's it. But yeah,
his cloak is self-deprecation, where he's talking about, you know, he's got to study because he's not smart enough. We all know that's not true. Like,
I know.
But he's you know, he's definitely like the best that you could hope for from somebody representing your country. Humble and high achieving, incredibly hard-working, and then also it turns out a great teammate. Because I think we were all concerned, like at various stages, that when the way the rowing weights all changed and the Olympics telescoped a little bit, that we were not going to be able to find someone at a similar level. And then obviously Fintan McCarthy replaced his brother, and Fintan seems to be driving him as well. Like we can't tell, right? Looking at the boat, what the crack is with the two of them. When you're watching the two of them, what do you see in terms of the quality of both of them and the difference between them, and how the gap might be closing even, or is the gap closing?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think Fintan has made Paul his target in terms of that's the level that he wants to attain, Fintan. So the big improvement of the boat this year, and it's clear that it has come primarily through Fintan. So Fintan has clearly kicked on. He beat Paul in the Irish Champs. Now Paul has had a very disruptive year, admittedly. So, but Paul is not at his best, and Fintan is really the person who has brought the boat to the next level, and it is at a new level now, with significantly less time and preparation in this European Championships than they've ever done before. So all of Fintan's numbers are through the roof in the last year. I mean, those guys. Fintan is a lot smoother, and he backs up Paul in terms of the rhythm. And Paul is that gutsy racer, and gives you the confidence. I mean, to row behind Paul must be like trying to stay on it. Like, it must be terrifying, you know, that kind of way, because he'll just go and go and go and go, and Fintan can go with him, and he's very good. There's no real big calls in the boat. He just knows. They know when they're moving. They know when they're moving, when they're pressing the other crews. So yeah, the story this year, I mean, we talk about Paul a lot, but the story this year really is Fintan and his improvement. So yeah, I mean, the two of them, I mean, it helped the fact that it was a long race the weekend. So it was 6.5 over 6.5 minutes, where it's normally about 6:10, 6 minutes 10 or 6 minutes 10 seconds. And that last 20 seconds helped them press on because they're such big engines. I mean, in that last 500, all the other crews were breathing through their ears and their fingernails, and these guys had oxygen tanks on, you know, that kind of way, just kept piling on the pressure. And the last 50, that massive gap open that you saw, clear water. So yeah, but the story this year is in my mind is Fintan, and that's fantastic that they're now kind of competing at that same level, that they have that same parity of esteem, which I would hazard to say wasn't there in the past.
What's the depth like in men's rowing?
In the heavyweight men's?
Yeah, just considering there's so much competition in the...
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Is there a similar level of competition behind them?
So clearly there's really only two people for that boat. There's really, unfortunately, Gary seems to be out of the picture. Gary O'Donnell seems to be out, which is heartbreaking. But that's that boat, and really there's the difficulty when you have two really, really dominant people. There's nobody even going to touch them. So they've kind of almost killed people coming through to that lightweight boat. In the heavyweight section, they seem to be having some problems this year in terms of they went from a silver medal, which is in 2019 they came on a silver medal in the double, Ronan and Phillip, and didn't perform in the Olympic Games. That was our first silver medal in heavyweight rowing since Sean Dre in 1970, 75, 76. So they seem to have not really stepped up. I know there's been COVID and various problems happening in that group, in the heavyweight group. But it's a concern that they haven't gone to the World Championship, to Europeans this year. I know they're all going into training camp now at the moment. There's a bunch of under 23 heavyweight men's rowers that are going to training camp. They are going to try put together a pair or a double or something to go to the World Championships. We definitely need a heavyweight men's boat at the World Championships. And there's actually a lot of people coming through on the heavyweight side, less on the lightweight side. And we'll wait and see what they can put together for the World Championships. But they really haven't backed up the result in 2019. Again, our first medals in 76 in heavyweight rowing. The hope is that they can find. I was talking to Ron Byrne before, and he's very, very disappointed that there was no crew going. But they need something to go for, or else that is going to fizzle, and they need to go to World Championships. That group needs some exposure at world level again, because if you don't, it will fade away, and people say, "Oh well, what's the point? You know, the money's going elsewhere, the time and effort is going elsewhere within the groups."
If Paul doesn't go to the World Championships, who do you think would fill his spot?
This one, I was talking to him. I said, like, Paul, what's the story? Like, are you gonna go? And I think he's gonna go. I think that the thing that he'll probably, despite me, say, Tuller, I'm not going, just because you said it on radio. But I think he's gonna go. I mean, there's this thing that he doesn't, he probably doesn't know where his medals are. He probably doesn't know a lot of that stuff. But the thing that he doesn't care about winning his 5th World Championship medal, I don't think. And to be honest, the gap between him and the other crews, they could do it relatively easily. Now, if there is a time to take some time off, this is the time to take it off. There's no question about it. But I think he will go, if I'm honest. But it is Paul, so you never know. My Fintan will row the single, and they'll put out there is a good under 23 lightweight double that they will race. So Fintan will race the single, and they'll definitely road it up. They won't put Fintan in with somebody else.
Okay,
that won't happen. But they'll race Fintan in the single, and it'd be great to see Fintan in the single. Maybe get a World Championship medal, which would really show that he's at that level. That improvement curve is real.
Yeah.
So the only way to really show that is really in the single.
Either way, there's loads of options. So Niall, if anybody wants to get in the boat fast, where should they go?
Just Google rowing clubs in Dublin. Go onto the Rowing Ireland site. Go into the Rowing Ireland site and look for your local club. And pop along, and they'd be more than welcome to have you. All ages, all groups, or you could join my indoor rowing class, which is Crew Class. Follow me on Instagram, Crew Class Dublin, and you can learn to get fitter faster.
There you
the
go.
Rowing way.
There you go. Good stuff, Niall. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
All right, cheers. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Always great to hear from Niall O'Toole, of course, Ireland's first world champion in rowing back in the day. It is a fairly special time for the sport. It was David Epstein who was over one time talking about his book, The Sports Gene, and he was talking about the predisposition of different cultures to different sports events and why certain. I was like, well, what could we be good at? He was like, rowing. That should be your thing, and that's
right,
like probably a decade ago at this point. And we were already very good. Like we had world champions in Niall O'Toole, but he was like body composition, the propensity. It's like the number 7. We have a lot of very identikit number 7s in rugby. We've always been great. Who all look fairly similar in terms of body shape and size.
Yeah.
They would all have been very good rowers.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I guess,
Josh van der Fleer, great engine.
Yeah, he would have been a good rower. There's also like body composition, natural scenery of Ireland, the amount of rivers, and also Cork people, notoriously stubborn.
There's something in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, it's
by the way,
it's the ends of the earth.
I didn't want to say this to Niall because he would have hung up immediately. Our producer Colm, who did the Cork Mount Rushmore at the start of COVID, says that Paul O'Donovan doesn't even make his Cork Mount Rushmore. So we were having conversations about Ireland's best sports person here. Colm says he's not even in Cork's top 4 Irish sports people ever.